Okay, y'all, I am so excited because we have an amazing world famous guest with us. We have Wendy Jo Peterson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I love it.
I mean, you truly are world famous.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Well, for all of the listeners who haven't heard you and have been living under a rock, tell us all about you.
Okay, where do you want me to start?
I know so much, but I guess I was like, oh, I don't really know your whole story. So how did you become a dietitian? How did you get into this space and then, I don't know, take over the world?
Yeah. So let's see. So I became a dietitian over 20 years ago now, and I would definitely credit my position as a military spouse as one of the things that has pushed and tested me and made me think more outside of the box than I ever would have, even probably would have done if I wasn't.
Take two.
Oh, sorry.
The joys of technology.
I was like, bam, gone.
I love it. So the editor will just cut that part off. And so if you want to pick up wherever you want to.
Yes, I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna put on Do Not Disturb. Sorry, I guess I should have done that. And normally I don't even have to do that.
It's hard being popular.
Oh, well, it's, you know what it is? It's my pediatrician.
Oh.
Yeah, which is no big deal. It's nothing important. So,
okay.
All right. So yeah, the military side of things has really been a thorn in my side, but also it's a part of my story that I can't take out, because with every move, with every change, with every new hat that I have to put on, we're just so resilient. And I leaned into it instead of resisted it. And I did every time I created change. And so sometimes people say to me, like, have you done everything? And I feel bad almost, because I've done a lot, just because every move we have made, I've had to recreate and reinvent myself. And sometimes it'll be, oh, well, that sounds fun, I might as well try that. Or sometimes it's out of sheer desperation of, I need to have a job and doing something, my husband's deployed and I will get into trouble if I don't. It's the truth. So after I graduated from San Diego State University, which of course military brought us out to San Diego, we moved out to the East Coast, and I was really lucky. It was the start of distance internship. So I was so fortunate. I got into a distance internship and it was great. That was such a godsend for me. And I was able to complete my internship, take my exam. That whole thing is a whole other story. But after all that was done, then I was job hunting, right, in Virginia Beach and looking for a job. And I kid you not, girl, I know you're going to believe this, but because, you and I both speak the language of worth.
Yes.
So they offered me $15 an hour to run a bariatric clinic. And this is a dietitian interviewing me in HR, offering me this.
Oh.
And of course, this is my Texas side coming out. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. After all that, what I just paid for this internship and everything else and all my experience and knowledge, and you want to offer me less than what I got paid coaching swimming?
Oh, hell no.
Well, and I did. I told him, I said, and of course I have no clue sometimes. And I said, I can't believe that you would literally sit here and think that that was a feasible or a fair offer to come my way. I said, good luck. You're going to have a lot of turnover in this job. And in 6 months, you can give me a phone call again and we'll talk. Mark my words. It wasn't even 7 months later, I got a phone call back and I was like, not interested.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. Adrien, they wanted me to go between 2 facilities, not paying me gas or anything to drive between 2 facilities, which, yeah, no. And each facility was 45 minutes from my house. So it was crazy. And it was to run a bariatric facility. And you know how much they make with bariatric. I'm like,
yeah.
no, I know what you bill insurance. No way. Oh, and then they were like, well, when you test and you pass your RD exam, we'll pay you 17. I'm like,
no.
I'm like, money in my pocket. No. So then I, of course, like called my mom and I'm like, we're chatting. And she said, well, Wendy, why don't you go teach? And of course, like everything, my whole family are teachers. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go teach. I was like, it's a great way to get to know the community, get to know people. Why don't you just consider going teaching? And honestly, that was definitely the path I was supposed to be on, because it took me down the culinary route. And so I actually started subbing for a culinary arts teacher, and then I got hired by the school. So I got paid so much more. I mean, I think at the time I was paid like $62,000 a year, but I only worked 9 months, and it was 10 minutes from my house. And they also paid for me to take graduate school, and they sent me to culinary school like every summer. But it was just the whole package. Like I remember we didn't get enough training in this in school, but you know, the idea of looking and exploring the whole package, right? I worked from 7:25 until 2:25 every day, which was great for me because I'm an early bird and I really like that schedule. It was close to my house, so less gas, which is really important right now. And then also I had the whole summer off. And then they also provided great education opportunities for me, which it's nuts that here are these hospital entities and things like that don't offer these good packages. And I got it teaching.
Amazing.
I know. But, and it's funny because, you know, when you're like graduating and you're like doing where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years? One of the things that I had put down was to write a cookbook. Now, kid you not, in 2000, when I graduated, I was like, I will write a cookbook. Mark my words, by 2010, I had written a cookbook. And it was perfect because it all kind of tied in, right? My food science nutrition undergrad, my master's of science in nutrition, and then teaching the culinary arts, still doing private practice, a skilled nursing facility, doing other clinical things. But then once I got offered that job for writing cookbooks, I've really stayed true to that path. I mean, I took some time away. I've written 8 books now. I'm on my 9th. And things happen at a different pace for a different time. I mean, I was on a big speaking tour. Actually, when I used to go back and forth in Austin, I got picked up from my book, which was the Mediterranean diet, and not a diet from the anti-diet dietitian, right? So not a diet. But I got actually picked up to do these talks. And so then I was doing 5 talks a month. I mean, just everything exploded. And it was all from that little book. But it was just the ability to have the credibility to stand up in front of an audience, you know, have my title. Plus, I love edutaining with a knife. So the minute you put me on a stage and I'm talking about nutrition and culinary and I'm wheeling my knife around, it's like my happy spot. My happy spot. Yeah.
So you're teaching. How did you jump from teaching to a book? Like what was, because I think that
another move.
Yeah. Okay. So all of our listeners. Yeah. So the key to success is to marry military is what I'm hearing.
I think the key to success is to not resist change, right? We are resilient, and sometimes change is a way to kind of challenge that like to start that paradigm shift, right? Which way can we go now? And I had no choice in change because we were moving it yet again. And you'll laugh because Mae Musk was a person who stopped me, and really she just grabbed my shoulders and shook me a little bit. But I had seen her speak when I was a student at San Diego State. I think it was like 1999. She came out and spoke to our nutrition organization. And it was about, how to dress for success. Cause Mae is all about style.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her because we were both on the Nutrition Entrepreneurs Board. And that's another thing. I've always stayed active as a dietitian in the academy some way or the other, right? And one of the things that I was doing, I was serving on the Nutrition Entrepreneurs DPG. Great board to be involved with, a lot of different people. You can create relationships doing things like that you never expected, especially as we move out of COVID and we're back to face-to-face.
So true.
But I called up Mae and I was like, this is what I want to do. And we were going to be in New York. And so we went over and we did lunch and everything and stayed with her. And she said, what are you doing? Why are you trying to find a job working for somebody else, Wendy? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, she was like, no, stop that. You don't have that personality to do that. You need to just go work for yourself. And it's true, right? There are certain people who I don't love having someone hound me. And I am a person who's a hard charger. So I like to get my stuff done and go do my own thing and not have somebody say, well, no, you need to be here 40 hours, whether you like it or not, or do nothing at all. You're going to be here, right? Yeah. That's terrible. That's a terrible concept. And so I took what she said and I said, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm going to take that leap of faith. And that was when I started blogging. This is like the new world of blogging, 2006, 7. And then I got lucky and a physician's office opened their doors to me. And I would just rent space from them, but I was my own entity. And so I did all my own billing and everything else. And I think I was in private practice there for, 5 years. But during that time was when I got offered the book deal because they had found my blog.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and I don't really blog as much anymore because now I'm too busy writing books that I don't have the time to share online content as well as, book printed content.
Yeah.
But so they had asked and they were like, would you be interested in writing a book, co-authoring with another dietitian? And I'm like, absolutely, didn't even hesitate. And I'm so glad I didn't because it has been one of the best relationships I've had. I wrote another book, Born to Eat, with Leslie Schilling. And with another, it was a different publisher. And I'll say, I really love Wiley Publishing, I work with the For Dummies books. I've really been able to convince them to allow me to take out a lot of the diet talk that was so prevalent. I mean, even as we're rewriting our Mediterranean diet book, taking out the whole notion of it's a diet kind of idea. So with this third edition, really taking out a lot of words that, 10 years ago would have been okay to say, but really have been hijacked by diet culture. And so I've been able to do that because I have a relationship now with my editor and really showing her that, hey, this isn't what we want. I know this is maybe what you think sells, but it's toxic for your readers. It's not what's really going to provide them health. Let's change the script. And so it's been great. I mean, and now I pretty much exclusively write cookbooks and take food photography. So I segued into the food photography with the last 6 books. And now I not only do all the photography for my own books, but I do photography for other For Dummies titles. And I love it.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, see, it's like I'm ADHD, which I am, but in the sense of like a career path too. It's like, oh, shiny, oh, squirrel.
But it makes for so much excitement. And I love that it also creates the job that you want to do and you wake up and you're excited to do, as opposed to, oh, I got to go talk about this for the umpteenth time.
Right? The mundane, skipping out on the mundane and really, if there is something you love, figure out how to make a profit from it. And I feel like in our society, our culture, we can do that, because if it's a niche and you really love it, you can own it to the point where it makes a profit. You really can. And it doesn't have to be for free. I mean, oh gosh, I should tell you this too. So just literally a week and a half ago, I got offered a talk locally. And so I said, first off, right away, I was like, hey, just let me know what your working budget is. And they never gave me what their working budget was. And I was like, okay, well, fine. I'll just send them out my rates and what it entails, so they understand the scope, plus, the increase of food costs, the increase of gas. They wanted me to do a bread demonstration and talk about the science of bread and stuff. And so really the talk component isn't so much. And I gave them a very fair price. And they were like, oh, whoa, that's too much. And I just said, I'm sorry, that is my rate. I said, I published 8 books. I am a national speaker. I'm international speaker, and this is what I do for a living. I'm not just a person who's coming in to do a health fair. And, I'm just volunteering my time. Like, this is work. Yeah. And if you want to have my time, all the time that it takes to prepare. I mean, breads are like, when you pay $5 to $8 a loaf of sourdough bread, there's a reason. It takes time to go into those loaves. And I mean, I gave them a variety of options, but it's so interesting, again, as dietitians, how often we undervalue and undersell ourselves and others. And I just thought, I gave them the option to tell me what their working budget was. I could have, told them right away. But it's crazy too, Adrien, is that a local library here in San Diego paid me my rate without batting an eye.
That's amazing.
Right? It's a library.
Yeah. And they saw the value and were ready to jump on it, as opposed to other organizations hemming and hawing.
Yeah, just really, I mean, I think we need to recognize, as women entrepreneurs, in many cases, what we're worth. I mean, our time to plan a talk, our time to execute the talk, travel, preparation, all of that is your time, and you have to have a value to it to get it. And I think the more you start sticking to your guns on that, I mean, then you can start charging the $5,000 to $8,000. I mean, there's, I'm considerate when I consider who's asking, and I usually always try to offer a very fair price based on who's offering. And there's some that I'm like, hey, no, this won't work for me, but I have an intern who I'm happy to guide and help, and then she can deliver it.
Yeah.
And that could, they didn't even give me that option, or, they just kind of closed the door. So that's another thing too, is I think it's always a good lesson learned, is how to keep the door open. So typically when someone says to me, hey, Wendy, can you do this? And my answer is no, but I may be able to find you somebody who can. They just quickly close the door. And when you close the door, you close the door of, hey, do you have anybody that you would suggest? You got to keep those doors open, because you never know. Like, there might be a time where all of a sudden you do have something that would fit that person, and keep them in mind for that.
So true. And I love that you started that conversation of asking the person that would want you to come speak, what is your working budget? Because I think all too often, dietitians were so scared of like, oh my gosh, well, I have to like show my worth. And so we'll throw out a number without even kind of understanding what the other side is asking. And so I love that you talked about that, because it's one of those things I have had to learn the hard way. And it makes a huge difference. And they're like, oh, working budget's $10,000. Like, great. Okay. So my talk is $10,000 here.
Exactly. It is true, because I think, and also just to be fair, like, right, I knew who was coming to me, and it was like another hospital entity. And I said, hey, let me know what your working budget is, and we'll see what we can do. When they don't respond with that, I'm going to give you what my local budget is. And there is a difference, right? So if I do a local talk, things like that, I recognize that I'm not traveling away. I'm not spending a night away from my daughter. I'm not having to worry about the school shuttle or, there's things that come into play from a business perspective, home-based business person. And so, but then if I'm going away and you're taking me away from my family, my home, and I'm basically at, travel 2 days plus the day to execute the talk and come home. Yeah, my price is much higher. So I try to be very fair in taking into all those things into consideration, but I'll be honest, right now, food costs have significantly gone up. I immediately talked to my editors. I think I have like 6 or 7 food photography gigs for the spring. And I said, hey, I want you to know, I'm going to show you what I paid last year and what I'm paying this year for the same food costs or the same item type things. And it's like double the value. So I'm like, I really need to increase these costs. Like,
wow, that's crazy that it's gone up that much.
Oh yeah. I mean, and now you too, like if you think about it from our gas here in California is really, really high. I mean, we're almost $6.
Oh,
yeah, per gallon.
man.
And it's like European prices, right? Although right now in Germany, it's over $8 a gallon right now.
Oh my gosh. What were you, when you were in Germany, what project were you, what project were you working on internationally? Because I know you guys live there, but like, how was work in Germany different, or was it?
Well, I wrote Born to Eat.
Yes, I love that book.
Yes, we love Born to Eat. And then also too, I wrote the second edition for the Mediterranean diet. So I did those 2 books, but really, I had a baby and we traveled and we lived. I took culinary classes galore, just even going and spending time with my girlfriends, my German friends, their grandmothers, and learning from them. That was actually when I came back here, we moved back and we had bread and we realized we could no longer eat store-bought bread. And that was when I pitched to my editors. I'm like, hey, how about I write bread making for dummies? And they kind of were like, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. Yeah. They're like, how quickly can you get this out?
So how long does it take a turnaround time for a book?
So the 4 dummies have it down pat. They know their stuff, and it's so squared away. I love working with them. So some of my books have taken less than a month and a half.
No.
For me to write and get to them. And then it's like a 3-month process to print for some of them.
That like blows my mind as somebody that is terrified of writing, that you could write a book with a publisher in a month. Holy bananas.
Yeah. So my bread making book, I started in March during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic. And then I finished it by July 1st. It went to and then it published in November last year, 2020, like 2 years, 2020. Yeah. November 20. That was when it published. Yeah. So it's a fast process through them. But the cool thing is too, they also do recipe testing, and I also have content editors. So they pay for recipe testing, content editors, nutrition analysis, which, me, I'm like, I don't care what that says. And enjoy and savor.
Yeah.
But it's kind of part of their, what they normally do in books. And so then also too, they pay for somebody to do the index. So I have all this support team to do this. And so it's great for me now, especially because I have a working relationship with my copy editor. I can call her up front and just say, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I'm just playing with this idea. And she'll say, oh, it's not been done, but let's check and see if we can do it. And so it's been great. I really feel like the more I've written with them, the more I love working with the 4 Dummies titles. But I also have a lot of respect for the content. And it's funny because at the time I got offered the first book, I had a 4 Dummies for guitar, 4 Dummies for accounting, 4 Dummies for I think it was website design and food blogging. That was kind of perfect.
Oh, that's wonderful. So do you have other like passion projects inside of you that like, I need another baby-led weaning book part 2?
I do have some big, big goals. I mean, I want to write like more of a James Beard book, that type of gorgeous book. And I feel a calling more towards the breads and the old world breads and kind of leaning in that direction, that path. But I think that's going to come, right? I'm in my 40s, and I could see that being something that I could do like in my 50s or 60s, really, like there's so much time. I'm not feeling rushed looking ahead. I know I'm on this path, and I will continue the path of writing and recipe developing, because it's what I do innately anyways. I have another book that I'm working on right now. Plus we have the 2nd edition for Born to Eat coming out this year, and the 3rd edition for the Mediterranean Diet Cookbook for Dummies this year. So I have 3 books hitting the shelves just this year.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it's fun because I can now pitch an idea, or they'll have an idea in their head and they'll say, "Are you interested?" I'll be like, so yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's a good thing, but I think the food photography side tickles my creative bone more than I thought it ever would. And it's been fun because it's another thing to learn. So I get to kind of study more in it. And I brought in a good friend of mine, Jerry, and she and I do it together. And so we are a workforce. Like, we literally shoot. So I food prep, food shoot, like cook, shoot style. And then she does a lot of the like actual photo taking. Mm-hmm. And we do 22 to 26 recipes, sometimes even 30 within 2 days.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. Like we're efficient. Like she and I, like when you find somebody you're working with and you're like, yeah, we jive,
yeah,
right?
It's like a groove.
And she and I have it, and it's been super fun. One, I knew she was a photographer for people. So I was like, she is a photographer. She went to school for this. Like, she knows her stuff. And 2, she's a woman-owned business, which I love. Like, we're both women working independently and getting to come together and collaborate. And 3, this chick is the happiest, most positive person. I love working with her because her energy is so up that it keeps our tempo just alive, right? Because we feed off each other's energy, right? I need positive people, not Debbie Downers. And so we have a good time. So we've been getting a lot more of those gigs, and we've got a lot of great feedback from the For Dummies entity, but it's just been super, super enjoyable.
Oh, fun. So for all of our listeners that are just like, you made it sound so easy. I'm just like, I just got this phone call and now look, I have all these books. Like, if somebody was wanting to step into writing a book or writing recipe books, where can they start?
Well, I mean, figuring out your writing style is really important. So what type of writing makes you get excited, that you really enjoy, and then trying your hand out. And I usually recommend like soliciting to magazines and reaching out to their food editors and start writing food articles. So that way you really get good at that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wrote for Taste of Home for years, and I love Taste of Home. I still do. And they'll contact me occasionally to do articles, but they know that I'm doing more books now. But once you find that, you can also blog and kind of develop your tempo and develop your writing niche that way. I am one of those people who's very direct.
No, I would have never guessed.
I know, right?
I was going to say
that's
subtle.
My Texas side, military style side. But that's the reason why the For Dummies model speaks to me so well, because it's direct. It drops it down to the basic level. So a person who really has no content knowledge can really learn about whatever the subject matter is and then execute with success. And so that's me. I mean, when I teach a culinary class, I love to give the little tidbits of, why do I use spelt? What's the reason behind it? Or, just those little tidbits, those little tasty morsels. And so for me, it was a good fit. And so, I think that that's a good start. What I would caution people on is that there are publishing people out there who recognize that dietitians want to write a book and they won't offer you enough money. So you need to be careful not taking, something that is so lowballed and you're like, oh, yay, but it's my first book. I can do it. Great. They're doing this and they're not offering royalties.
Oh my.
Yeah, there's definitely, and people are jumping on it. And I know the publisher and so I see the books and there's no testing behind the recipes. Again, it's like, think about what, your credibility behind it. Books don't make you successful.
No.
And not every book is going to be a bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
Majority are not going to be a bestseller. Some of these publishers, they'll pay for people to go in and review. And again, like from an ethics standpoint, like, let's talk about that. Let's think about that. And so be very careful, coming to that. Can you hear me still?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that's some great advice because, I'm not sure which publishers they've reached out to me and I'm like, one, no, because I can't write. Two, no, because like what you're offering is a horrible idea. And three, I mean, if you ever looked at anything I've ever done, I don't write recipes. And so it was just, they were just hunting for dietitians.
I think that's probably the same publisher. Yeah. It was really, I was surprised how lowball the offer was. And I know people can be hungry and I get like hungry to kind of break in for that. But instead I would say, don't be so quick to just jump on something. Develop yourself first and then have a negotiating ability. And then also to, a word of caution. Leslie and I learned this the hard way. We had a really good friend and a colleague that we let do the advanced reading of our book, and content was swiped and made into an e-course before the launch of our book.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You need to make sure you have a non-compete signed before you let someone read it. And you also need to make sure, that it's not their area. Like they're not going to go back, 3 years from now and they're going to write a book and they're going to take content. Like you have to be very careful, and it can be even of your best friend. You really need to consider this. Like I'm also working on a project right now within the special operations forces of other spec op wives, and we're doing another thing. And I've had to say, like, hey, you guys, be careful. Like it's not even to say that if somebody would have malevolent intentions and do this. You might just put that idea in somebody's head and they're like, oh, well, this would make a great e-course. Maybe I'll just develop it from here. And whatever the reason is, keep your ethics straight, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody comes to you and they say, hey, can you write a book, or can you read my book on business for dietitians? And you're like, hey, well, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this in the next 5 years. Thank you for the offer. Maybe consider this person. It might be a better match for you, etc. Right?
Yep.
Own what your expertise are. And maybe that's something that you might see yourself doing 5 years from now. So don't be an advanced reader for them, right? It's okay. You can read their book later and give them praise, but that's different than being an advanced. And so watch yourself. I mean,
yeah, I think
even friends.
Yeah. I think that's such great advice, because it's one of those things as a new person in business, as a new person writing, you don't ever think of those things. I'm like, oh, I would have never even thought of like having a non-compete for reading a book, because I would have never even thought of those things. Like, It's so great advice.
I never would have thought, Leslie and I talk about this. It's like, and I'm talking about Leslie Schilling, obviously,
Yeah.
but so Leslie Schilling and I, we have these conversations about, we know what our ethics are, and we know how we feel so strongly about doing right for others, and doing right by ourselves as well, that we wouldn't do that to somebody. And so unfortunately, we were burned in business, and live and learn, right? You live and learn, and you do better the next time. And so please learn from my mistake, and navigate ahead better. But yeah, start blogging, start writing, figuring that out. Take some courses in writing. There's creative writing courses. Tufts actually has a phenomenal master's in nutrition communications program. I mean, had I not been married to the military, had more choice, I would have loved to have applied to go to Tufts. Not they would have accepted me, who knows? I would have loved to have taken advantage of their communications program. It's top notch. And really, even just taking communication classes, understanding the basics of how to, lead-ins, and how to stay in first person or second person or third person, knowing the differences of those things that, we're taught in grade school, but you don't regurgitate that as well. I mean, I'm my copy editor. She's like my saving grace. I just adore her, because she's like, "Hey, Wendy, is this what you meant?" I'm like, oh, "Yes, thanks."
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love it. Well, I can't wait to see what comes next. If I could put in a request, I would love Born to Eat, like the second, not a second edition, but like for yes. Because I'm like, my little dude, he's like, we did the beginning stages. I'm like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know.
I know. There's such good things though. Like Feeding Littles has got a great program out there too. And I think, always if we continue to go from the lens of an intuitive eater, I feel like navigating forward, we've got it. We really do have it. And I always say, like, keeping the intuitive, with Sumner's new book out and everything like that, intuitive eating lens for raising kids, like how to raise, kids in this diet infested culture, and how to make sure that we're supportive but not pushy, right?
That's the hard one of just and getting all
trusting.
of the people on.
Yes. Oh yeah. I had family come in and I said, oh, we're gonna sit down and have a little chat, because we're not going to talk about other people's weight. You're not going to shame your body. We're not going to shame other people's bodies. And you're going to do it, because otherwise you're not going to be invited back. Good news is my husband came on board with it was so important. Like when we moved back from Europe, he really recognized the difference of our time in Europe and people just not commenting on bodies and not just shaming themselves or having this idea like, oh, I just ate this and I need to go do this. They don't do that there. And so when we moved back here, he was at a grocery store getting stuff, and a little girl was talking to her mom, and she was like holding up a box of cereal. And she said, "Mommy, will this make me fat?" And my husband was mortified because the little girl was like the same age as our daughter. And he realized, like, when I say it, like it hit him like a freight train, that was like his, here's your sign, Jeff Fox, here's your sign. It really was. I mean, he's always been supportive of everything that I do and say and everything, and the reason why we do it in our house, right? But I think it was him hearing it in our culture and how deeply sickly embedded it is, that he realized even more so how important it is for us to be vigilant as parents navigating forward.
Oh, wow. Oh, you just want to like, where's that little girl now? I hope she enjoyed her cereal and could care less about it.
I know. I mean, and I hear it all the time, because people say to me, and it drives me nuts, especially in our military community, they'll say, Wendy, gosh, how come you're not fatter after like eating all that bread? Because, you know, I cook so much bread. I'm like, really? You're honestly saying this to me?
As opposed to like, oh my gosh, I need all of your bread recipes. Like that would have been a better approach of like a question.
Well, I mean, it's like, no, bread does not make you fat. I'm sorry. And fat is beautiful. All bodies are beautiful. Like, can we just separate? Like, not, let's just savor and enjoy the sourdough bread and we're good.
Oh man. I just, my Texas comes out and I just bless their hearts. Oh,
I know. Oh, bless. Exactly. Oh. I know. We do it, right? It's that Texas.
Oh, I always wonder, like, I hope other states have a, oh, bless their hearts.
Yeah, I think the East Coast is a bit more expletive.
Yes, I think so too. Oh.
I'm like, whatever, dude.
Very true. Very true. Oh, Wendy, I could talk to you all day, but where can we continue to learn from you, see what you're doing, get your books? How can we keep up with you?
Well, I'm active on Instagram. That's kind of where I post the hodgepodge of what makes Wendy Jo, which is, bread, beaches, family, trips in Olaf the camper van. And then I have a website. So my Instagram is just _Wendy Jo. And then my website is justwendyjo.com. So you can reach out to me. I'd love to hear from people if you have questions or if this somehow inspired you. I love to hear things like that because, there have been many, many positive people in my life as a dietitian who have inspired me to push beyond and take that leap and jump into that. And, there's people that I admire that I could share with you who to follow because there's just some really rad people doing some cool things in this world.
Oh, Wendy. Well, we'll definitely have all of that in our show notes, but thank you so much for hanging out with us. This is just a treat to get to talk to you.
I miss you.
I miss you too. Bye.